Right, so apparently the Labour government's master plan to solve the small boats crisis is about as effective as a chocolate teapot in a heatwave. Day one of their shiny new migrant returns deal, and what do we get? The French literally operating a taxi service across the channel while asking for their life jackets back like they're returning a borrowed lawnmower. You honestly couldn't script this level of incompetence if you tried. Welcome back to British Tribune, where we dive headfirst into the political chaos that somehow passes for governance in modern Britain. Kindly hit the subscribe, like and share button for another daily breaking news. Today we're unpacking what might just be the most spectacular policy faceplant since someone thought it was clever to call a snap election during a cost-of-living crisis. Yvette Cooper's grand small boat solution has managed to achieve the impossible, making the previous government's Rwanda scheme look positively sensible by comparison. So here's what happened on day one of Labour's supposedly game-changing approach to channel crossings. The Daily Express, alongside Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, witnessed something so absurd it belongs in a Monty Python sketch. Two small boats packed with migrants were literally being escorted into British waters by French naval vessels. Not intercepted, not turned back, but escorted like VIP guests arriving at a five-star resort. Picture this scene: you've got French boats shadowing dinghies across the channel, shepherding them safely into UK territorial waters, then radioing British border force like they're coordinating a perfectly choreographed handover. It's the kind of international cooperation that would be heartwarming if it weren't completely undermining the entire point of border control. The French captain actually had the audacity to ask for his 60 life jackets back over the radio. 60 life jackets. Because apparently they needed them for the next batch of crossings later that afternoon. Chris Philp absolutely demolished this farce with surgical precision. He called it exactly what it is: a people-smuggling conveyor belt that's now operating as a round-trip service funded by British taxpayers. We're literally paying for our own borders to be circumvented. It's like hiring a security guard who holds the door open for burglars and then asks if they need help carrying the stolen goods. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Yvette Cooper, the architect of this masterpiece of policy failure, refused to give any concrete numbers about how many migrants were actually detained under the new scheme. When pressed by reporters, she went full politician mode with the classic, "Will provide regular updates" routine while simultaneously claiming that revealing details would somehow help criminal gangs exploit the system. Let me get this straight. The same system that just got exploited on live television by French naval vessels is apparently so sophisticated that mentioning how many people are in detention would compromise national security. It's the political equivalent of closing the stable door after the horse has not only bolted but started its own successful racing career in France. Cooper's response was a masterclass in saying absolutely nothing while using as many words as possible. She confirmed that migrants who arrived on small boats are now in detention and that transfers to immigration removal centers are underway, but wouldn't give a single concrete figure. It's like a restaurant proudly announcing they're serving food without telling you what's on the menu or how much it costs. The timing of this disaster couldn't be more perfect for Cooper's critics within her own party. Sources close to Downing Street suggest that Keir Starmer is privately furious about the optics of day one. This was supposed to be Labour's moment to prove they could handle immigration better than the Tories. Instead, they've managed to create a situation where the French are literally providing door-to-door service for channel crossings while British taxpayers foot the bill. The one-in, one-out agreement that Starmer negotiated with France is looking less like tough border control and more like a particularly inefficient passenger ferry service. The French take people from their beaches to British waters, we take them the rest of the way to shore, and somehow this is supposed to deter future crossings? It's the kind of logic that makes you wonder if anyone in government has actually thought this through beyond the press release stage. What makes this even more embarrassing for Cooper is that she's married to Ed Balls, the former Shadow Chancellor who knows a thing or two about political disasters. You'd think some of that experience might have rubbed off, but apparently not. Instead, we get policy implementation that makes the poll tax riots look like a minor administrative hiccup. The Conservative opposition is having an absolute field day with this, and who can blame them? When your political opponents hand you this kind of ammunition on a silver platter, you'd be mad not to use it. Chris Philp's assessment that this is the worst ever numbers might be hyperbolic, but when you're literally watching French boats escort migrants into British waters on day one of your new policy, hyperbole starts looking like understatement. But here's the really concerning part. If this is what's happening on day one when everyone's watching, what's going to happen when the media attention dies down? Are we going to see the French start offering in-flight entertainment and complimentary refreshments during these channel crossings? Maybe a loyalty program where every 10th crossing gets you upgraded to a speedboat? The fundamental problem with Labour's approach is that it assumes the French have any real incentive to stop people leaving their shores. From their perspective, why would they want to keep migrants in Calais when they can safely escort them to become Britain's problem instead? We're essentially paying France to be more efficient at exporting their migrant crisis to us, then acting surprised when they take us up on the offer. Cooper's refusal to provide transparency about detention numbers isn't just politically stupid, it's strategically counterproductive. If the whole point is to deter future crossings by demonstrating that people will be detained and returned, surely you'd want to publicize those numbers as widely as possible? Unless, of course, the numbers are so embarrassingly low that revealing them would expose the entire scheme as theatrical window dressing. The real tragedy here is that serious immigration reform requires serious thinking, not political theatre designed to generate favourable headlines. Labour came into power promising competence after years of conservative chaos, but Cooper's small boat strategy is looking less competent and more like chaos with better PR. When your policy's biggest achievement on day one is ensuring the French Navy gets their life jackets back, you might need to reconsider your approach. This isn't just a policy failure, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of incentives, international relations, and basic common sense. You can't solve illegal immigration by making it more convenient and safer while calling it deterrence. That's like trying to reduce speeding by installing more comfortable seats in sports cars. So where does this leave Keir Starmer and his promise of competent governance? With a Home Secretary whose flagship policy has become an international laughingstock within hours of implementation, and growing whispers that heads might need to roll before this gets any worse. When your own policy is being more effectively criticized by French boat captains asking for their equipment back than by your political opponents, you know something has gone seriously wrong. The question now isn't whether Cooper can salvage this mess. It's whether Starmer will cut his losses before the entire immigration portfolio becomes a permanent source of government embarrassment. Because if day one is any indication, we're in for a very long and very expensive lesson in how not to manage border control. That's all for today's breakdown of what might be the shortest honeymoon period for a major policy initiative in recent political history. Make sure you're subscribed to British Tribune because at this rate, we'll be covering Cooper's resignation announcement before the week is out. Hit that notification bell, share this with anyone who needs a good laugh about British politics, and let me know in the comments whether you think Cooper will survive the month or if Starmer's already updating his CV for the next reshuffle. Until next time, this has been British Tribune, where we make sense of the senseless and find humour in the hopeless.